What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you are listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. In this episode of Disguise Coverage, we are back in our regularly scheduled 9 p.m. Eastern Tuesday live slot. Shows uploaded to the audio podcasting apps as soon as the live show here on YouTube is done. And we are close to actual real Bills football. Training camp starts next week, and then the preseason is around the corner, and the regular season will be here before we know it. And so with that in mind, we're starting to ramp up here on the show. And with that future outlook and that go forward in mind, I thought it would be a good idea to have this episode focus on, we've done so much niche diving into the Bills this offseason, position grouping, schematic things, adjustments, lack thereof, archetypes, what it means, so on and so forth. And I thought it would be nice to kind of bring all of that to a head and talk about, with, training camp on the horizon, where the Bills rank in the 2025 AFC landscape and what could or will or might hold them back from finally getting over the hump, getting out of the AFC, getting to the Super Bowl, maybe even win the Super Bowl, what the expectations should be. We've talked about those things in smatterings throughout the offseason, but I thought it'd be good to have an episode focused on that. So here we are. And I say we because I am not alone in this episode. I thought it would be fun to have the added perspective of someone who covers football nationally and who does a tremendous job of it, who knows ball, who knows scheme, who knows structure, who knows the X's and O's. With that being said, I am joined by, and I'm so mad at myself. I told myself to count, and I did not. This is just another record appearance for JP Acosta of SB Nation. I don't know where we are at this point. You're definitely, I think, the highest frequency guest I've ever had. And at this point, I feel like I need to get some kind of jersey and hang it up in an imaginary rafter behind me. But the regular viewers of the show love you, love your work. A bunch of people were tweeting at me when you were on with me to Kimes to see you there and how great you do. You're awesome. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome back for your umpteenth appearance on the show.
Thank you for having me. It feels like we got one day. I've made it up my head. My NFL bucket list is to get up to Buffalo for a game and go through a table. I pitched it as a story to my editor, and he was like, "We cannot have you do that because you might get injured." And I'm like, "That's the point. Like, you don't understand. Like, I trained in a pro wrestling ring for a day, so I think I'm ready to actually go through a table.
I can take
I got to get up there one day."
Dude, that would be sick. Yeah, you got to get up here. The Bills tailgate is awesome. There's no wrong way to do it. It's a really good time, whether you go through a table, whether you don't. But, whether you do it in like the early part of the season when it's still hot, or if you get some of the elite fall weather here in Buffalo, which is great, or if you really want to go full tilt and try and get it in December or January and get the cold and the snow and get there at 9 a.m. on a Sunday for a 1 o'clock game, man, there's no way to go wrong for a Bills tailgate. That would be awesome to see you up here. And if you go through a table, that'd be even better.
I feel like going through a table, the best time would be in the winter, end of December and January, because you might have the snow to help cushion your fall. And you're also wearing a bunch of heavy layered clothing, but you're also going up in the winter. And as someone who is from Florida, that just doesn't mesh well. I end up looking like the Dolphins every time they go up to Buffalo. Nice. So it's just, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna see what we can do, but I'm definitely gonna go through a table one of these days.
You got to do, and then have a razor blade in your jacket so you can blade on the way up and just bleed and just really sell it. Just sell the hell out of it.
I'm going full Macho Man off the top rope, elbow drop through the table.
I love that.
Everything I have dreamed of, both as a football writer and a professional wrestling fan, going through a table just as it's like a rite of passage. So eventually I'm gonna have to do it.
I think we should, in an ideal world for you, put it all together. And it's like a playoff game. It's Jags at Bills. You come up, you're going to the table. We need it. We got to have it at this point.
We're manifesting that.
I was going to say, we need to just keep speaking it into existence. And the more that we do, it will come through and come to fruition. Oh, that's very good. JP, you do awesome work. I mentioned in the lead in, you cover this league on a national perspective. You grind a ton of college tape in the offseason too. So a lot of these guys coming in the league, you're very familiar from, covering college football during the college football season, in addition to the NFL. So I thought you were a tremendous mind to bring on to the show to have this discussion that I mentioned in the lead in. And, I think I'll just bring up the banner and kind of, get into the first topic a little bit here. But I think this season for the Bills, you're coming off of 2024, another disappointing loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Josh Allen wins the MVP. And I feel like it's another spot where they're close, but there's also some teams in the way. And I think it's just from the Bills' perspective, and honestly, even from the Ravens' perspective, probably even more so, it feels like it's another year where it's like, you could easily win the AFC. You could easily win the Super Bowl, but is something going to go sideways for you? And it seems like it's become this regular thing, but putting the Bills within the AFC landscape, and we're going to have a large discussion on that here in the episode and then talk about some Bills-specific things as well. JP, if you're thinking about the Bills or even just thinking about this overall AFC landscape, if you are power ranking the top 5 teams in the AFC. Also, nobody yell at JP. Nobody do anything if he doesn't put the Bills 1. I don't want anybody giving him the treatment that everybody's been giving me because I say Christian Benford is in a top 5 corner and I got everybody and their mother yelling at me on Twitter or in the comments on episodes. So be nice. Everybody's so heated. Yeah, shame. Everybody's so heated, but to each their own. And also to those joining us live, feel free to let us know your power rankings, your responses to the questions that we'll be going over tonight, your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, likes, dislikes, everything. But JP, if you're talking about, the top 5 in this AFC landscape, what does it look like for you? Why? What were kind of the deciding factors? What did you hang your hat on? Kind of anything you want to speak to when it comes to power ranking the top 5.
So when it comes to the AFC, I think the AFC is really interesting when you compare it to the NFC because you can make the argument that 3 of the top 5 contenders for the Super Bowl all come from the AFC. But then when you get into numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, they might all come from the NFC, where I think the AFC has become so top heavy with the top 3 teams. And then there are a bunch of teams that are kind of like, we could see it if everything breaks right. We could see this if you get one miracle run in the playoffs, but you're not going to bet on them. Yeah. And that's where that's where ranking these teams in the AFC kind of gets a little funky because after the top 3, you're doing a lot of projection. Like, if we're taking, for example, the Texans, you're projecting that the offensive line kind of gels together quickly. You're also projecting that a first-year offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, is able to, or I think it is Nick Caley, is able to bring what he did and what the Rams did in LA to Houston, in addition to potentially starting 2 rookies in your receiver core because Tank Dell is going to be out for an extended period of time. Christian Kirk is coming off a shoulder injury, and Nico Collins, who is very good, but also can't stay healthy. There's so many questions everywhere for every team outside of the top 3 that it makes it so fun, but also so difficult to rank these teams. But if we're going off of if we're just going to rank the top 3, I feel like I'm kind of going to be I feel like if I say it this way and I speak it into existence, I'm going to end up looking stupid. But number 3 is probably the Chiefs. And I feel like with saying that, I feel like I've just opened up, like, how in anime where you just say the word and all of a sudden, like, boom, everything goes straight down the toilet. This feels exactly like what it is. It feels like with the Chiefs, you believe in the Chiefs because they have the biggest trump cards in football, which is Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Andy Reid, and Spags. And at this point, you could even say it's Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Spags, Chris Jones. Like, they have the 4 biggest big-time players and coaches in the biggest moments. But when you take a step back and look at this team, there are a lot of flaws this season. The offensive line, especially at both tackle spots, still has to gel together after losing Joe Thuney. The run game, while successful, is also not very explosive.
Mm.
The passing game hasn't been able to find that second gear, and you're hoping that Rashee Rice comes back healthy. On the defensive side of the ball, you're still trying to get more consistent pass rush from your edge rushers or anybody not named Chris Jones, and you're already losing Tershawn Wharton. You lost Justin Reed in free agency, and now Jaden Hicks, who I think is going to be good in the secondary. You're still replacing a lot of veterans. So this feels like the year where all the Chiefs' good drafting has to come up. It feels like this has to be the year. This has to be the year where Jaden Hicks, like I said, takes a step up. This has to be the year where you can finally find a consistent second corner next to Trent McDuffie. This has to be the year George Karlaftis or Felix Anduke-Uzomah steps up as a secondary pass rusher, because you don't really have that guy next to Chris Jones. But again, it might all not matter, because at the end of the day, you still have to go through Patrick Mahomes, and you're probably have to go through Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead, which nobody has been able to do. So I'm putting them at 3 based on what this team looks like right now. And I already know that this is going to end up just automatically, like, they're going to use this in the Chiefs like postseason Super Bowl tape to say nobody believed in them at the end of the season. I know you're gaslighting. I'm familiar with your game. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Bills at 2, because I think the margin between the Bills and the Ravens is razor thin. The reason I have the Bills at 2, and one of my biggest questions that we're going to get into, is a consistent outside receiving threat. I think a lot of their offense was built between the hashes, which is fine with Khalil Shakir, with James Cook, and then you have what Dalton Kincaid can bring you as a receiver. But I just don't have a lot of faith in Josh Palmer. Keon Coleman had an up and down rookie season that was also marred by injury. So now you're wondering if he can stay healthy and if he can be the consistent outside threat that the Bills need in the receiving game. Defensively, you're putting a lot of faith into Daquan Jones and Deion Walker, who with Deion Walker, he's big, but he's not a nose tackle.
No, he's a huge like one gapping penetrator who played like everywhere from like he played everywhere from like a wide 9 like into like a shade on the interior. Like he's everywhere on that D line. He's just huge, but he's a penetrator. Yeah,
he's just big. So when you see him, you're like, oh, that's your run stopping defensive tackle. No, he's not built to control gaps. He's built to penetrate gaps. So you're again left with this team is still built to shoot gaps with smaller linebackers, and you just worry a little bit about getting hammered again by a team that is able to beat you up as light as they are up front. And then in the secondary, you're just kind of hoping for health. Like you're hoping Taron Johnson stays healthy. Christian Benford had a really scary injury to end the season last year. That's something that has to come into account. Maxwell Hairston also didn't finish the season at Kentucky. He was hurt. Cole Bishop stepping in at safety also was hurt for most of the season last year. Taylor Rapp doesn't have the biggest or the cleanest bill of health. So it's just there's a lot of projection on defense that I think if it all lines up, yeah, I could see this team winning the AFC. But I think there are less questions with the Ravens than there are with the Bills right now, because the Ravens kind of answered most of their questions of who's going to play safety, who's going to work out the Kyle Hamilton being deep, who's going to play nickel, who's going to play outside. Well, they found the answer to that, and it's Malachi Starks, who is going to play. I'm pretty sure they're going to have him play deep safety with Kyle Hamilton. You move Marlon Humphrey to nickel, and then you're going to get the most out of Jair Alexander, because that's exactly what they do.
If they stay healthy on the back end and it's Wiggins and Jair on the outside, Humphrey at the nickel, and then it's Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks, that secondary is crazy.
And they can wear so many hats. Right, exactly. They wear so many hats in coverage. You have your man guy in Wiggins. Jair can still give you a lot in zone coverage. And then you have like the pterodactyl back there and Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks who can just cover everything. So I think with the Ravens, it's just, can you avoid the wacky shit? Can you just avoid the weird loss to the Raiders at the
Can you
beginning
just
of
be
the
normal? Can you just
Yes,
stop
just
it? Like,
be
please.
normal. Can you avoid fumbling 5 times in the voodoo land that is Acrisure Stadium? Can you avoid Mark Andrews dropping a pass at the goal line? Can you avoid all those wacky bullshit things that happen to the Ravens? I think adding a better kicker will also help them out and give them a wider margin for error offensively. I guess if we're looking for questions offensively, the passing game still, like, among the receivers, you're waiting to see it really, like, it clicked last year. Can you get that to repeat again, especially when Mark Andrews on the decline? Can you get Rashad Bateman with a new extension working well? But again, these are more like, we saw what happened last year. They were the most efficient offense in football. Like, I think I looked it up today. Lamar Jackson had a passer rating of 119.6. The only person above him in the NFL last year was Marcus Mariota, and that was only because he played 3 games. Like, there's nothing else that the Ravens have to do except stop the weird shit. And I guess, like, you could even say that for the Bills. It's just stop the weird shit when you have to play the Chiefs. But again, it's easier said than done at this point. So if I'm going with the top 3, I think I go Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. And then 4 and 5, it starts to get really murky. 4 and 5, you just wonder, like, where do you go from here? I think my number 4, hesitantly, I'm going to say the Chargers. I hesitate to say the Chargers because the pros are, you keep Jesse Minter around, that defense is going to rock once again. You start Tuli Tuipulotu full time. I think another year of Deion Henley in the middle is going to be really good. And I think you found your outside cornerback rotation. Offensively, you're hoping for a healthy year from the offensive line, but the biggest issue is Greg Roman, and can you find another receiving option outside of Ladd McConkey? They have Trey Harris, but Trey Harris is also dealing with a contract holdout. So it's just like the questions there are super big. And so I have them at 4 and then 5, just because I believe in both these teams' defenses, but it's tough because in my head, I'm choosing between the Texans and the Broncos here.
Okay.
And the reason I'm leaning Texans is because they might have the best defense outside of Philly in football next year. That team is going to be insane. You get another year of Kamari Lassiter. Derek Stingley is amazing. You have Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., who I think Will Anderson Jr. is going to go off this year. I think he's phenomenal. Like, they're so fast and so physical. DeMeco Ryans copy and pasted his 49ers defense in Houston. And this time he has 2 legit pass rushers. So like I said, I want to believe in them, but the offense gives me so many questions.
I love the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson addition to the secondary. Like, he's just
going to be so evil. They're going to be so evil. They're just so mean. They play like they want to hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think I remember watching the Bills game last year where To'o ran through Dalton Kincaid, and I was just like,
on the bubble where Kincaid's the blocker. Yeah.
He flattened them, and I'm like, that's Texans football. Like, that's Texans defense. They want to hit you in the mouth. They're going to stand over you and talk about it, and they're also not going to let you score. The problem is every game might end 9-6 because your quarterback's going to end up on his back. You don't know what the run game's going to look like with another year of Joe Mixon. It's just so many questions. But with the Broncos, the biggest question is at quarterback. Can you get more out of Bo Nix? I think Bo Nix played well in the back half of last season, but he also, I think Ben Solak had this stat where like 35% of his passes in the back half of last season were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Which, look, man, get it how you get it. Like, if you're going to throw passes behind the line of scrimmage, I think, like, they have a formula for winning football, which is they're going to win after the catch, which is fine. But you need somebody who can win after the catch. I think Marvin Mims Jr. can do that, but he's more of a gadget guy. You're relying on a rookie running back and RJ Harvey. The defense is once again going to be great, but you don't know who that next person is going to be. So I think Man, the AFC West is going to be insane this year. There's a part of me that wants to go with the Raiders just because I love I love the idea of Geno Smith throwing to Brock Bowers, Ashton Jonty, and Jack Besh and Jacoby Myers, but they have questions on the defensive side of the ball. I think I'm going to go with the Broncos here at 5 because I just have more faith in what they have right now. I think right now I can see that they have a very good defense and an offense that they know what they're doing. Although they don't have the ace in the hole that the Texans have on both sides of the ball when it comes to Nico Collins and the pass rush of the Texans, but when it comes to everything else, the Broncos are the better team right now. I mean, it's tough because, like I said, after the top 3, everybody's just like, I could see like the Raiders like turning back the clock and Pete Carroll getting this team back to the playoffs. I could see the AFC South becoming an absolute bloodbath. You know, the Jaguars might do it again. I'm not going to say they're going to do it. I just think they're going to be competitive. I don't think anybody in the AFC East is going to do anything this year, but you never know. The AFC North is always going to be competitive. You have the Bengals, and I just don't. I'm not going to say anything about the Bengals until they figure out what they got going on with Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart. I saw the report today that Shamar Stewart was looking at going back to college.
Yeah, go back to A&M.
Wrap it up. Y'all better go pay that man. Or else, like, if Trey Hendrickson doesn't play and you lose Shamar Stewart, you are left with everything that you wanted going into the season just goes up in smoke defensively. So I don't know what happens there. The Steelers, I don't have any faith in that. I don't have any faith in the unction. It looks the Steelers would be such a cool team if this was like 2020. If this was 2019 to like 2021, I'd be like, oh, the Steelers are like one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. But everybody's old. And I think where the offense might get marginally better with Aaron Rodgers, even though if you look at success rate and EPA, Aaron Rodgers was a worse quarterback than Justin Fields last year. You're going to lose a lot defensively, especially if TJ Watt doesn't play. Like you're losing a lot at safety with Minka, who kind of cleaned up everybody's problems last year. So there's a lot of teams where I can see like the pros after the top 3, but there's also a lot of cons that make me question, like, I don't know what they're going to be this year. This is all projection outside of the top 3.
Yeah, very fair. I'm in the same boat with you for 4 and 5. And also for those watching, and if you're familiar, whenever I have JP on the show, we usually go for like 2+ hours. I'm trying to streamline that this time for the sake of JP. So I'm going to be piggybacking on his points instead of also giving my like answers in conjunction with his. Cause again, I don't want to keep JP here until we've been here until like 11:15, 11:30 at night before. Like we've gone live. I think we did like a 2.5 hour show at one point. Yeah. I'm right there with you with 4 and 5. 4 and 5, I think, is such a cluster in kind of like a fun way. I'm really, and again, it's on paper, but to a degree, I'm really intrigued by Denver. You know, you mentioned the defense, everything from them last year, from a coverage standpoint, from a run defense standpoint, from a pressure standpoint, from a sack standpoint, from an EPA standpoint, like whatever metric you like do a dart throw for, they were like at the top or the top for defenses. Like it was nuts. Aside from that, and that was with that wild game against Baltimore where they got boat raced out the door.
They got blown off the face of the planet and still finished first in EPA per play, which, I mean, the only thing you really worry about with the Broncos defense is defensive regression. You're not going to be number one every year. Like there's going to be some volatility, but you also return everybody. Like nobody
I didn't think they were going to keep DJ Jones. I wanted the Bills to get DJ Jones, but they bring him back. And so Allen and Jones and Jonathan Franklin Myers and Cooper, you have a second year for Jonah Ellis. Like they're just, even the rotational guys they have like after them are all right. And then you add Dre Greenlaw. I completely forgot they added Talanoa Hufanga Like, so him on the back end and Brandon Jones is a sneaky, rangy safety going back to his Miami days. So if you can allow Hufanga, like you can play in those split high looks with both those guys, but if you want to let Hufanga just be that typical like buzz down monster man safety that he can be, and then on the outside you're playing with arguably the best corner in football, probably the best corner in Pat Surtain, depending on how you feel about Stingley. And then you've got Riley Moss, who had a good year last year. I love that they got Jahdae Barron, like one of my favorite dudes in this draft class. Benito, Alex Singleton is all right. Like Alex Singleton is probably the weak link on that defense, but he's insulated with all the other talent from everywhere else. Like you've got juice, you've got physicality, you've got run defensibility, and then offensively, I love this comment from RJ. He said, just don't bring up AEW All In from the other night. Then we'll definitely be here until 11:30. I am purposefully trying to not bring it up because that pay-per-view was amazing. But yeah, good call, RJ. Yeah, the offense I have questions on, but I trust Sean Payton enough to just insulate Bo Nix and do Sean Payton stuff. And yeah, like great stat poll, that Solak had that you mentioned. But like you said, it works for them. They have a good offensive line. Like everything that they did, like when they paid Mike McGlinchey all that money with like Sean Payton's first year, I was like, wow, all that money for like McGlinchey, and like, wow, all that money for Ben Powers. And then we're sitting here a couple years later and it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe they did overpay, but their offensive line is like above average to solid. They can run the ball a little bit. They've got some weapons. I'm interested to see how Evan Ingram falls into that offense. And I just trust Sean Payton. Like you have a tremendous defense and then a Sean Payton-led offense. I think that'll kind of get the job done. Bo Nix is athletic enough to do some things. You hit some shots with Mims or Troy Franklin, who I don't love. I think Cortland Sutton is still an underrated piece, even though he's more of a wide receiver too. I think they're really interesting. If you told me they were 4, I wouldn't think you're crazy. The Chargers, I think you're pretty spot on there as well. Cincinnati keeps coming in the back of my mind, but I just refuse to get into there because there's just still all these horrible questions for this team. And I understand like defensively why they made the switch, but I felt like Lou Anarumo got scapegoated a little bit. Like I still think he's a really good DC, but we're moving on from him. Fine. We paid Higgins and Chase and Burrow, but there's all these questions elsewhere, offensively on the line and defensively. But Burrow is so good, but I refuse to like acknowledge them as a thing until they stop doing hey, we're going to start out like 1-5 and then try and claw our way back. I refuse to acknowledge them as being a thing. But 4-5 is really interesting. Texans, I want to see what their offensive line, and those are really like kind of the teams, so again, I'm pretty much in lockstep with you. But if we dive into, and you spoke about them a bit, we'll kind of focus on who the real contenders are, that Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, going in your order. I'll start with the Chiefs here as we just kind of discuss it. Man, it's this power ranking the teams in the AFC. I have the same issue putting someone ahead of the Chiefs the way that I have the same issue putting someone ahead of Patrick Mahomes for quarterback rankings, which I will not do because it's a death trap to do any quarterback rankings. You and I were talking about this offline. Everybody just gets angry. It's a terrible situation. This is maybe, we'll probably end up saying something wrestling related at some point. I think Ric Flair is a tremendously overrated wrestler. He bores the hell out of me. He can only do one thing. If you've seen one Ric Flair match, you've seen them all. And also as a person outside of the ring, very much less than ideal. Whole nother conversation. But I love the Ric Flair quote of, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And until somebody beats the Chiefs in the AFC, even if I think they don't have the best roster, because this is it too, like I didn't think they had the best roster the past couple of years. I really thought it was Baltimore. Like I remember you and I talking on Blue Sky in like December or something, and then Mina Kimes jumped in on it. We were talking about like, the scariest AFC teams or offenses going into the playoffs. And I remember saying like, if you take the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens going into the playoffs, and if everything for all 3 of their offenses click, the scariest one to me is the Ravens because you cannot stop them. And then what happens? They shot themselves in the foot in Buffalo, just like they shot themselves in the foot in the AFC Championship game the year before against Kansas City. Like they can't seem to get out of their own way. The Bills can't seem to get past Kansas City. Neither team can get past Kansas City, but also like the Justin Reed loss, I think is a big one. And the questions that you mentioned for this team, I think are real, but you've still, at the end of the day, you've got Chris Jones, Pat Mahomes, Spags, and Andy Reid. And those 4 people seem to get the job done. it's so hard for me ranking like the top 3 in the AFC and not putting the Chiefs at 1, because it just seems like time in and time out and time again, they just, like you said, like they just find a way. Like it's like, not to make a wrestling like reference, it's like they're being booked to win. Like it's just like the way they keep doing it, it's like, oh, of course, like, LOL, Cena wins. LOL, Chiefs win. It's like, because they just always find a way, like a blocked extra point or a blocked field goal or some fumble at the last minute or some ridiculous throw or some penalty that shouldn't have been called that benefits them. There's all these moments in a variety of ways that seem to go in their favor, that they cause or that are given to them. But at the end of the day, even if I don't think they're like the best, it's so hard for me to put someone ahead of them, which is also part of the reason why I didn't want to do a power ranking, because it stressed the hell out of me and I didn't know what to do. Like like the Chiefs are an enigma, I feel like, every year. And we'll sit here, like you said, you have them at 3 and they'll go like 15-2 somehow. And it won't be sexy. They won't be blowing anybody out, or it will be. And they're beating everybody by 30 or 40. And you're like, I don't understand. They're just an enigma, which pisses me off even more than they already pissed me off.
It's like being in Itachi's Genjutsu with the Chiefs, because like you might think you got them. You do. You're up by like 10 with midway through the 4th. You got them. You got them right where you want them. And then Patrick Mahomes shows up. And like that's the whole thing last year with them winning so many close games, that's because that's how they want to win.
Yes.
That's how they decided they were going to win.
That's their comfort zone. That's their wheelhouse. Yeah.
I hate to bring it up, but it feels like playing Brady. You knew exactly what you needed to do, because you had Brady on offense and Bill Belichick calling the defense. This time, it's just Mahomes on offense and Spags calling the defense. And as long as you have those two on each side of the ball, it doesn't matter what you do. Like you have to put them in the ground for you to actually beat them. So yeah, I have them at 3 right now because their questions just feel so insurmountable. But the last time I said that, they won the Super Bowl. So look, man, it feels like I'm like tense saying the Chiefs are number 3 in the power ranking, because I just know this is going to backfire. They're gonna go like I said, they're gonna go 15-2. They're gonna get home field advantage, and then somebody's gonna have to go play them in Arrowhead. And I just don't think you're gonna beat them in Arrowhead in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they're just, for as many questions as they have, like their defense is still so built. Again, you mentioned him already. I think the Justin Reed departure, I think, is a bigger loss than is necessarily being talked about. I feel like he did so much on the back end in a multitude of alignments, responsibilities, roles for them. I wanted someone else to get him when he left Houston several years ago, but their defense is so well positioned and built to deal, even if they're not the best defense or the sexiest, between Spags and then their roster construction, they're so well built to deal with like modern offenses, like, condensed formations and everything you do. Cool. The Chiefs have like all these combinations of body types and skill sets in their front that they can mix and match with. Similarly, on the back end with what they can do with McDuffie and even with Connor to a degree. We'll see what happens with Hicks. All the corner blitz stuff they love bringing from the boundary. You can disrupt a condensed formation by bringing a cat blitz real quick. They're coverage diverse in terms of you can play too high, you can play single, you can play cloud. They can mix and match and play split field. Like their defense is built so well schematically and structurally to deal with how offenses have shifted into the world now with, condensed formations and bigger body types and dictating to the defense and creating mismatches. And that makes it even more frustrating. But yeah, they're such a wild enigma. The Bills, I'm going to skip over the Bills because we're going to focus on the Bills in a large chunk. The Ravens, like I alluded to, I'm in a similar spot that I've been for like the last couple of years, probably even more so. Like I really do think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. Like I think they're arguably the best team in football. And I felt similarly last year. And I know I've said it a bunch of times on the show because, anytime I post anything positive about the Ravens or say anything positive. Again, understandable. The Bills beat the Ravens, and Bills fans and Ravens fans hate each other now because of what last year and the year before brought. But man, I don't want to say the Bills beat the Ravens by the skin of their teeth in the divisional round, but it was so much closer than it necessarily kind of felt like. Like, you're a Mark Andrews drop and a Mark Andrews fumble and a couple of Lamar horrible decisions, and you're still arguably should have won that game. Lamar drives him down to essentially tie it in the end. But again, that's symptomatic of what happens to the Ravens every year. They shoot themselves in the foot. Sometimes it's Lamar. Sometimes it's someone else. It's Zay Flowers, getting, or was it Aguilar or whoever, who gets stopped at the 2-yard line and then fumbles. All these moments that seem to not align for them, usually against the Chiefs, but in big moments, especially in the playoffs, it feels like they should be the best. And schematically, they've gotten so good. Or rights the ship in the back half of the year for the defense and moving Kyle Hamilton to more of a traditional safety role. Monken is a really good offensive coordinator and getting all these pieces to funnel together. Their offense has been a unicorn for years, and you just no defense is really a good match for their offense because you have to deal with Lamar as a passer and a runner, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, I think, is a fun running back that doesn't get talked about enough. All the weapons, the gap scheme stuff, the read elements, the pistol, they can do so much, and you can die so many ways. And then similarly with the defense, now we talked about it, the addition of Starks, the addition of Jair Alexander. But I could easily see a world where it's Jair got hurt and Humphrey got hurt and Wiggins got hurt and, their front got banged up a little bit and Zay Flowers went down again and, Bateman got hurt again. Is it injuries that are going to do him in, or is it a big mistake, or do they do something foolish like they did in the AFC Championship 2 years ago where Lamar was a little banged up and everybody's like, well, it's fine. They're just going to run the ball anyway. And the Ravens were like, nope, we're going to pass it 50 times to try and beat Kansas City at home. And everybody's like, what are you doing? Why are you not? The Chiefs can't stop the run. And you're the Ravens. Just run the ball. No, we're just going to chuck it 50 times and go that. It just seems like they always get in their own way. And I hate talking about things that aren't schematic or structural. But I feel like with the Ravens and Chiefs, they're polar opposites of one another, where the Ravens feel like it should be them and they find a way to not do it. And the Chiefs, it feels like it shouldn't be them, but they consistently find a way to. And then the Bills are in the middle where they have the advantage over the Ravens, but can't get past the Chiefs. It's so frustrating. As a Baltimore fan, I cannot imagine how frustrated you've been over the last couple of years if you're a Ravens fan. And even just as a football fan, yeah, it's just when, for as much as this year feels like, okay, is this the year for the Bills? You're making that exact same argument if you're the Ravens, but probably even more so because you've had the best roster on paper for the past couple of years and probably do again this year.
And I think that point that you made about the divisional round game against Buffalo is huge because the Ravens had a 52% success rate in that game. They had a 60% success rate on the ground. We're talking about, again, we can do what ifs up and down till we're blue in the face, yes. But Mark Andrews probably should have caught that pass. Yep. We're making a completely different statement if Mark Andrews catches that pass. But again, that's the thing with the Ravens. It's always something. It's always they're always stepping on the rake. It's, again, to make a wrestling reference, it's always Kurt Angle going for the chair shot, bouncing it off the ropes and hitting himself in the head. It's always something with this team. And
real quick, just to further your stats, because the Ravens really turned it on in the second half. They came out. I remember coming out of the second half, and whoever was the sideline announcer asked John Harbaugh what to do or what was going to go on. He gave a real simple, confident answer. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember sitting there going uh-oh. And they came out like a buzzsaw that whole second half, but the third quarter especially, the Ravens EPA per rush in the third quarter against the Bills in the divisional round was 0.64. And their EPA per pass was 0.08. Overall EPA per play at 0.42. But they just ran it down the Bills' throat. And that EPA per rush 0.64. The Texans were second in the divisional round at 0.41. So just an astronomical difference. The Ravens just came out like a buzzsaw in that third quarter. I just wanted to add that because that stat always sticks in my brain.
Again, the EPA per carry is so funny because the best team in the NFL by EPA per carry this last season was the Commanders. They were at 0.12. So
crazy difference between that and what the Ravens are doing.
Ravens said, "Oh, okay, we're gonna just forget everything that we did in the first half. We're gonna turn into like a buzzsaw in the second half." So again, and I think somebody brought it up in the comments, home field matters. I think home field matters so much, especially with these three teams, because the margins for error are so small. They're so small when you get to these games. Like last season, when the Bills went into Baltimore, everybody was hurt. Derrick Henry takes off for 87 yards, and it was like, oh, it's going to be that type of game. But then they go to Buffalo in the playoffs. It's cold. It's everything hurts. And the Bills came out and stacked the box. They were like, okay, we're at home now. We got it. And then like we said with the Chiefs, you got to go in and beat them in Arrowhead. Again, I make the anime comparison. It is a domain expansion over there. I don't know what they got going on. I don't know what they've done over there. You can't beat them there. You just can't. It doesn't matter what you do. You get there and forget how to play football. Or like somehow, like again, last season, the AFC Championship game, it was right there. Yeah. It's always right there. And the Chiefs are just like, nah, that's not happening. We're just going to play our best football of the year in this one game. So with the Ravens, if you want to get into schematics and what they can improve on, I think Zach Orr getting another year as a defensive coordinator is going to really help the defense out. I think early in the season, he was kind of going through the ups and downs of being a first-year coordinator who was promoted under Mike McDonald. But now he's got another year. Now you have a consistent defensive back group. You have everybody back. And then you kept Todd Monken around, which is the biggest shock of kind of the offseason is that keeping Todd Monken around. So now you have everybody back. Like you said, there's not a lot of excuses this time for why the Bills can't win the Super Bowl. Or not the Bills, why the Ravens can't win the Super Bowl. Because you have everything. Everything has returned. You kept Lamar healthy. You got Derrick Henry back. All the receivers are healthy. Mark Andrews coming back. You have quite possibly the most dangerous 12 personnel unit in the entire NFL. You have the most dangerous heavy personnel in the entire league if you play 21 and you go Ricard, you go Derrick Henry, and then you have Andrews or Likely on the field.
Yeah, well, I would say what even two? What if you go 22 and it's Ricard and Henry and Likely and Andrews?
You go 22 and just absolutely crater teams, which is what they did last season. I have to look it up what their numbers were at a 22, but it was some ungodly number. But
because how do you deal with that? Like, and you can get to so many formations offensively. You can get to so many run concepts. You could even, if you really like, you could still go not like spread, but you could put Likely in the slot and whatever wide receiver outside. You go a little twins. You can go ace formation. Like you can do so much. And then on top of all of that, say you pass it and it doesn't work out, you'd still Lamar Jackson back there who'll be like, oh, okay, I'll run around and make something happen, even if it's a gain of 4 or 5. Like, even if it doesn't work, it can still work.
So last season, according to Sumer Sports, in 22 personnel, the Ravens led the league in snaps out of 22 personnel. They had a 0.19 EPA out of 22 personnel. To compare that, last season, the Bills finished second in the NFL overall in EPA per play at 0.18. According to
crazy.
So, you know,
just live in 22 and never get out of it.
Well, the crazy thing is the number one team in EPA per play overall last season was the Ravens at 0.21. So their 22 personnel was better than any team in football. There's nothing else you can say except stop doing weird shit. If you want to host a game in December, in January against the Bills and against the Chiefs, don't lose to the Raiders at home. Don't lose the weird games to the Steelers. Like it's time to stop the weird shit. Just cut the weird shit out.
Yeah, man. I don't know which one would be. That Raiders game has to be frustrating. You're up, you choke it away to the Raiders. That Steelers one, I remember watching it live on TV. And there's all these stupid fumbles. Like everybody's getting hit and the ball's coming out like every 2 seconds. Like it was such a stupid loss. And it feels like they do that every year in Pittsburgh. They just, there's these weird trends, or like you said, like the voodoo or like the bad juju that's attached to them in certain stadiums or certain moments or certain games. And I think at some point that's real. Like, it's not like a curse, but like, I feel like the players feel that. And then it gets to the point, right, where say you're in an AFC championship game or divisional game, whatever, the playoff game or a big game, and something goes wrong early. It's so easy to be like, dude, like, here we go again. Like, this crap is happening again to us. And it's so easy to get into that mindset and not be able to get out of it. And then if you're not in that right state of mind, that can overcome all the talent you have on paper, your schematic advantage, your usage, all of that. Like, if the players are feeling that, does it creep into the coach's psyche? And it's just so weird for this like team and franchise. Again, even though previous years don't have anything to do with here, especially previous like iterations, but for this franchise that's known for being so savvy, they draft well, they sign well, they're tough, like they travel well. No, for as long as the Ravens have been around, every year it's always like nobody wants to play the Ravens in the playoffs, and because they're usually this tough physical team and tough mental team. But now it's almost kind of like, yeah, they're getting into like yips type of territory where are they mentally tough? Like, are they chokers? Like, are they scared of the moment? Like, and I don't necessarily think it is all that. I think some of the stuff is more circumstantial or even coincidental, but there's only so many coincidences that can keep happening before, like, you know, once is an accident, two is a trend, three, whatever that saying is, like, we're at that point with them where it's not just circumstantial, like it's getting to another spot. And if it happens again this year, if they get a game where they have stupid turnovers in the playoffs in some way or drops or anything, I'm really, my brain will explode because
but last a couple years ago in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, you had the Zay Flowers fumble. In the divisional game against the Bills, you had the Mark Andrews drop. You had the Lamar turnovers at first. It's always
the Mark Andrews fumble, that big catch. Bernard is out of position and just flails at Andrews, gets his fist right on the ball. Ball comes out, the Bills get it, and you're just like, oh my god! Like,
it's like I don't know what else to do. Like, they're just, I hate to keep saying
weird shit.
They stop doing weird shit. That's the best solution I have for the Ravens. Is just stop being weird.
Stop being weird. Just play. I was saying, you don't even have to kill teams by 40. Just stop doing all the weird stuff. Just balance it a little bit, and just be a good football team week in and week out. That's
it. Just play B+. You don't got to play A+ every game. You just got to be a B+. You don't have to be like, because what the Ravens end up doing is they play A+ for like 2.5 quarters or like 3 quarters. And then, like, for one random quarter, you don't know which one it is, but for one quarter, they play the worst football known to man.
They just play D- football, and you're like, up there. Even what is it, like 3 years ago, the game where they're piss pounding Miami, and then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they don't know how to play coverage anymore, and Miami scores like 30 something points in the fourth quarter and beats them, and everybody's like, oh, like, the Dolphins are here, this offense, yada, yada. My bigger takeaway was like, what the hell did the Ravens choke this away on offense and defense? Like, they're throwing the ball and not running. It was like I feel like I was watching the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl again, where it was like, nope, we're snapping the ball at 25 seconds. We're going to throw a bunch of incompletions. We're not going to play cover. It's just, they just find a way, man. Yeah, just stop doing that. You don't be A+ and then D-. Just be a B+ all the time. And your B+ game probably beats most teams week in and week out.
And then, like, if you want to compare it to the Chiefs play like C+ for 3 quarters.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
And then go supernova for the fourth quarter. And they don't get the variance. Like, maybe they'll play their A+ in the first quarter. Maybe they'll play it in the third. No, they're just gonna sleepwalk for like the first 3 quarters, and then like, oh, okay, it's time to win the football game, and then they're in the Super Bowl again.
Oh, yeah. It's a big moment in the game. Cool. Spags is going to throw his best play out there on a 4th and short and win it. It's, 4th down in the AFC Championship against the Bills. Cool. We're going to bring this blitz that completely confuses Allen and the protection, and we're going to get a free runner. But then again, the mystique, like, Allen still makes a crazy play, but the ball flutters. Kincaid drops.
And it's then Andy Reid's going to drop a play that hasn't been seen since like 1920s Yale. And Samaje Perine is catching the ball out the backfield on an important 3rd down. And I'm just like, this is what they do. I have no other words to say than just
and then you're sitting there after that game, like in years later, it's like, oh yeah, that was the Samaje Perine game. And it's just like, he shouldn't have a game. That
shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, that's not what we should remember in this for. Yeah, man.
That's not how God wanted football to be. This wasn't supposed to be a Samaje Perine remember game.
We used to be a proper nation. Where's my football gone? Where? Oh man, yeah. But it's gonna be a fun AFC this year because I really do think like 4 through the rest of like the top 10, you can make a bunch of combinations like we highlighted, and then that top 3, it's gonna be a dogfight. Ravens and Bills, I think, set the tempo right out of the gate. Week 1, Sunday Night Football, they play each other. How much does that game come back to mattering for home field? Like we talked about, each of these teams will play each other. In the top 3, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills. Yeah, a lot of moving and shaking there and a lot of fun narratives with the rivalry that is developed within each team versus one another, and then the larger landscape. All right, so that's the AFC as a whole. Let's focus on the Bills. Your second ranked team in the AFC in terms of the power rankings. Let's talk about some of the things that could potentially hold the Bills back this year. So for those playing at home, JP is going to give his top 3 things that can or will hold the Bills back from getting over the AFC hump this year, or hump in general. Could be very large scale and broad brush. It could be very niched and detailed. I have no idea what they're going to be. Again, in the nature of streamlining, I am not giving my top 3. I'm just going to comment on JP's and we'll have an organic conversation around that. Feel free to start in whatever order you want, like your third, most important thing or the top thing that you think can or will hold them back, whatever you want. Just say it. The floor is yours and we'll talk about it.
So my top thing, or I'm going to start with third. My third thing is health. And I think this really shows up a lot for the Bills every year. Everybody falls apart, especially defensively, where, again, it's the symptom of the defense that you play because you're always going forward. You're always a penetrating defense. You're gonna get hit. You're gonna hit a lot, especially with 220-pound linebackers in the middle and a 190-pound nickel cosplaying as. Or actually, I'm not gonna say that. 190-pound linebacker cosplaying as a nickel.
That's the better way to say it. Well done.
You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hit a lot, and you're gonna keep getting dinged up. So you gotta stay healthy, especially for this Bills defense, where again, Benford's injury last season was really scary because it happened 2 weeks in a row. It happened multiple times where you're like, oh no, this is a serious head injury. This isn't something that, we talked about like pre-show where like people forgot how good Denzel Ward is. Denzel Ward has missed a lot of games due to concussions and head injuries that are really scary. So you just worry about your best corner being out in critical moments. Maxwell Hairston, first-round draft pick, also missed a lot of time with an injury this past season at Kentucky. You're worried about, again, Milano getting up there. Terrell Bernard hasn't been able to stay healthy. Taylor Rapp hasn't been able to stay healthy. Health truly, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is really important for this team because they cannot afford – I don't think the Bills can afford any injuries to the second level of the defense because of how critical those guys are to the makings and runnings of that defense. It's not to say that their depth is bad because I don't think the depth is bad, but because of how important Taron Johnson is in his specific role, because of how important Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard are in keeping the spine of that defense intact, you have to keep those guys healthy. Which goes into my second reason why that might hold the Bills back, which is the run defense just doesn't iron itself out. And we've seen it work. We've seen it work in big games where they're going to come in and the bigger teams are going to try and out physical them. We saw it against the Lions. We saw it against the Ravens in the divisional round. But then you also have games like the Rams where the Rams decided they're just going to run duo the whole game and just obliterated the defense. So it's just like, I want them to invest in a true nose tackle, a true nose tackle that can stop the run. I think Daquan Jones is fine, but right now he is better as a rotation.
Yes.
He's getting a lot of snaps because he has to be the one to stop the run. We talked about it earlier, but Deion Walker is not a nose. He is not a one tech. He's more like a jumbo size 3 tech. So you're relying a lot on Ed Oliver, who is 290 pounds, to be your best interior run defender and hold up gaps for your 220-pound linebackers. And we talk about it a lot in the cyclical nature of football. That might have been really cool back in like 2019, 2018. Now you're getting 330-pound guards hitting you in the face every play, and that shit hurts. Like that, it's gonna wear on you. I think everybody plays college football 25, college football 26. That wear and tear is gonna hit you.
It killed me so much last year when I first started playing it. I wasn't ready.
It pisses you off so much, but it's a real thing. You're gonna keep getting hit. So I think the run defense, because of how light they play, by choice, they choose to play this way. If you're not going to have a consistent run stopping nose tackle or bigger bodies that you are willing to play, I don't know about the run defense again. And can you afford having an okay run defense if, are you okay having an okay run defense again? I think it's fine. It was fine like a couple of years ago. Yeah. But can you afford not having that when the Chiefs are more built to win on the ground? You have to play the Ravens. You have to play a team like the Texans, who, despite having a weird offensive line with Nick Caley coming from the Rams, they're going to get big and they're going to try and run duo and counter and gap schemes at you. Are you built to beat the Broncos again, who are going to try and run the ball down your throat? Are you built to beat the Chargers, who are built to and want to run the ball out of big personnel? So I worry a little bit about their run defense. And then the number one thing is just finding a consistent outside threat at receiver, or specifically, like, the biggest question is Keon Coleman. And I love Keon Coleman. I love what Keon Coleman brought to the NFL, but he has to, I think the biggest thing that Matt Collins brought to the Bills last year was contested catchability on the outside, as well as his blocking. Keon Coleman doesn't have to be an elite separator, but he has to win at the point of attack. He has to win at the catch point. He has to win in those areas when you need a first down on the outside and you're running a stop route or you're running a comeback. You got to go win those passes. If you can just be, I don't know, you can just be like Allen Robinson or something. If you can just be like Mike Williams or something on the outside, that would help the offense be so much more efficient, and there's so much more pressure taken off of Khalil Shakir. There's so much more pressure taken off of Josh Allen, because it feels like in every big play, in every big moment, they had to go to Khalil Shakir, and teams start to key on that. I do really have a question about what Dalton Kincaid's role is on this team, especially going into this season, because if they're going to keep doing this monster ball thing, Dalton Kincaid doesn't really fit into that. Like, where do you play him if you're getting into big personnel? He's not a great blocker. If he's on the field for 11 personnel, you're basically giving up that you're going to throw the ball, because he's not a blocker in line. So I wonder, what do you do with Dalton Kincaid? Because he's a reliable receiver. So you wonder who steps up outside of Khalil Shakir in this passing game. That's the biggest question for them. That's who they need to. That's the biggest thing that'll hold the Bills back, is finding a consistent second option in the receiving game.
I don't know which of your three I want to start with, because I agree with all of them. I'm going to start with point 2, because if I were doing this exercise, that would be my point 1. So you mentioned 2 great games. I considered doing an episode on solely juxtaposing the Bills, because it was back-to-back weeks. They played the Rams and lost, and then they played the Lions and won. I was going to do an episode just purely film breakdown of the run defense against the Rams, the run defense against the Lions, what worked, what didn't, what happened back-to-back weeks. I just couldn't get the time to cut up all the film, put the episode together, so I didn't end up doing it. But what you essentially had happen, I think those 2 games are such a good microcosm of the Bills' run defense, because that first game against the Rams, and you talked about it, it was duo and a bunch of split zone, and the Bills are just getting blown off the ball, especially on the interior. They're getting driven back. They're getting displaced horizontally, vertically, double teams, one-on-one base blocks. Like, there's just gaps. Kyron Williams isn't even like shaking and moving. It's just, let me just put one foot in the ground and get vertical. Cool. And it's like five yards. But they're also getting some stops. Like the first run play of that game, Daquan Jones gets penetration. You're like, oh, okay. And then they stop winning one-on-one. Then the next week, you're playing against the Lions, and you're thinking, man, it's going to be even worse, because the Lions are going to go heavy. The Lions have a better offensive line, probably have a better run game. They've got the, Gibbs back there. Like, what's going to happen here? And the Bills come out, shut down the run early. The Lions only have 15 rushing attempts in that game. And it's like, wow, okay. But what the Bills did, two different things. Against the Rams, it's their regular kind of defense, right? We're just playing defense. Against the Lions, they made a concerted effort to stack and load the box with bodies, gap out, and win with numbers. The very first play of that game against the Lions,
they came out.
Yes, and there's basically 9 dudes in the box, and Cole Bishop makes the stop because they're essentially playing like 5 down and 4 behind it. Like they are just loading up the box, ready to stop the run. And they did that. They stopped the run with numbers. The Bills score on offense. It forces the Lions to abandon the run. They pass the ball and come back, but the Bills win that game. But I say all that to say, the way the Bills stopped the run last year was with numbers. From time to time, they'd win one-on-one, but it was gapping out, and it was winning with numbers. I just don't think that's sustainable in today's NFL, but especially given the type of offenses you're going to face in the playoffs and at the top tier in the AFC, or if you get to the Super Bowl. And you mentioned, kind of the way they went this offseason. I wanted them to get more of it's a space eater, people eater, whatever you want to call it. I wanted them to get a defensive tackle that would limit displacement. I wanted somebody that could handle double teams and drop the knee or anchor and lock out and not get moved. And it's part of why, Tyleik Williams was the guy that I wanted for the Bills in round 1. And I don't know if you heard this, but Tyleik Williams, the day after he got drafted, said the Bills told him that if he was there at 30, they were taking him, which made me want to throw up. And then he's also got like these 2 adorable cats, and he's showing his cats on like Good Morning Football. And I was like, this guy would have fit schematically, and he's got these awesome cats. Like I hate my life right now. And that made me think, okay, maybe they're going to opt for that bigger body type of guy. So then in the second round, even though he doesn't have a lot of pass rush upside, I'm thinking, you know what? Alfred Collins from Texas, run defense. Nope. They go with TJ Sanders. And I liked TJ Sanders, pass rush, juice, penetration, but they very much, between adding Sanders and adding Larry Ogunjobi in free agency, they just leaned more into what they already do, which is one gapping, penetration, and getting upfield. It reminds me of the episode of The Office when Pam doesn't want Michael to date his mom or her mom. And he's like, I'm just going to date her harder. Like, that's what the Bills did. Like, oh, you want us to limit displacement? No, we're just going to, get displaced harder. And we're going to lean more into one gapping and rush. And now when you pair that with new Bills senior defensive assistant Ryan Nielsen, who you are familiar with, of, Jags defensive coordinator fame last year, a lot more games up front, a lot more 5-man pressures, different things. So, I think they'll work in more run stunts and games up front. But at the end of the day, it's still very risk reward because you're still opting for penetration. You're still going to get caught out by trap and wham and crunch. Like you're still going to, if teams just want to run duo down your throat, is TJ Sanders going to be able to hold up against a double team? Is Ed Oliver? Is Larry Ogunjobi? Because Larry Ogunjobi struggles with double teams on tape, like in the NFL. TJ Sanders, we don't know because he's a rookie. Ed Oliver does actually do well against double teams. But if you're asking your 287-pound defensive tackle to battle against double teams, he's going to wear down real fast. Daquan Jones is their best guy for that. But like you said, he's a little long in the tooth with miles on the tires. He's much better suited for a defensive tackle 3 rotation role. That's what I was also thinking too. Give me Ed Oliver, Tyleik Williams, Larry Ogunjobi is the backup 3 tech. Daquan Jones is the backup 1. You've got this nice rotation on the interior. And so you've just leaned more into the penetration piece, which again, if it works on third downs, you get more pressure, is cool. But you got to survive first and second down first. And the way they did that last year was loading the box. So again, that means how many 2 high coverages are you playing? Are you playing more single high? Who's your post safety? Because Taylor Rapp doesn't have the range as a post safety. Cole Bishop does, but his processing isn't that great in that type of role. And he gets worse the further he gets away from the line of scrimmage. Or is Derek Forrest starting for you or DeMar Hamlin? I think Forrest is the best combination of athleticism and processing, but he hasn't been a full-time starter. DeMar doesn't have the processing or the ball hawking skills. Are you relying more on your corners one-on-one? I say all this to say it creates this negative domino effect of if you can't stop the run and not get displaced, it starts to create negative opportunities for you defensively. And I think I have some metrics here that really put like the Bills defense and the type of defense that they played last year, especially against the run, kind of into perspective. Because a lot of people always like to say the Bills are like a bend but don't break kind of defense. And I put this tweet out a couple weeks ago, or no, last week, because I don't think I didn't call it like bend but don't break. I said they were more like bend but try to create a takeaway or a negative play for the offense. That's what it was. It was either we get you or you get us. Either we get you or we get got. That was it. And so here's some numbers for this Bills defense, because they finished overall in the year, they finished 4th in EPA per rush at negative 0.14. So you're like, oh, okay, they play the run well. Go further. They were 24th in a bad way in terms of runs of 10 or more yards allowed. So they gave up, if you're working backwards, they gave up like the 8th most runs of 10 or more yards at 62. But they were 1st in stuff rate, which is the amount of stops for 0 or less yards. They were 2nd in total stuffs. You're like, oh, okay. But then 18th in average depth of tackle, 18th in yards before contact per attempt, 18th in yards after contact per attempt, 22nd in missed tackles, 7th in success rate, 8th in rushing DVOA. Again, everything kind of balanced out because they played this risk reward style where they're slashing in and they're making a stop and now it's 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 13, or they're getting gotten. It's a run for 14 yards. And that also tied into their overall defensive metrics. These are kind of nuts to think about, right? So these next ones, 31st in punts per drive, 1st in takeaways per drive. Right there, just that juxtaposition tells the whole story. But we go further. 15th in points per drive, 22nd in touchdowns per drive, 26th in 3 and outs per drive, 23rd in plays per drive, 26th in drive success rate, 25th in time of possession per drive. All of these put into perspective the risk reward, get you or get us type of nature of their defense, but also showing that you could grind out runs against this team, and teams that didn't have the game script push them away from the run had success against the Bills. The opening game against the Cardinals, you and I previewed it and we talked about it. That Cardinals run game, that gap scheme, physical type of run could give the Bills problems. And it did, until the second half when they decided to commit bodies. They were able to make a comeback. I think that is the biggest concern for me because they are still light on the interior. Their ideology and philosophy has not shifted. And then at the second level, you've got smaller linebackers in Milano and Bernard and Taron Johnson, who plays essentially linebacker for you at times because of the type of nickel that he is. It's just the biggest issue for me in terms of them not getting displaced and consistently trying to win with penetration. And, you know, we talked with Greg Rousseau and Terrell Bernard this offseason and broke down film with them. And both those guys said, without being prompted, a big thing for us this year is winning on early downs and getting to more 3rd and medium and 3rd and long. In order to do that, they're going to have to gap out on 1st and 2nd down, which opens you up to play action, which opens you up to explosives, which limits your coverage structures on the back end. It's such a loaded thing for me, and I love that it was one of your top 3. It's probably number 1 for me. It's something that, and then again, if you want to put it into the offense, cool. If teams are running the ball down your throat for 7 plays on, 7 out of the 10 plays on a 77-yard touchdown drive that took 8 minutes, that's less opportunities for Josh Allen in your offense. And then that changes the script for the Bills offense, who also wants to play ball control and run the ball. It gums up everything for me, which, again, what they're leaning into, it could work. It's just that risk reward nature. It's very worrisome. And I don't think they have an answer. Like you have to win with penetration and rush and gapping out because you don't have another option.
And I think you brought up the Rams game as a really good inflection point, because what I was going to say about that Rams game is the reason they couldn't out-gap the Rams is because the Rams were in 11 personnel for a large majority of their runs.
And they also used a bunch of motion, so they're pulling guys out, they're shifting, and they're taking advantage.
That's always been the thing with the Bills defense. You move Taron Johnson out of the box, you move their 3rd linebacker out of the box. So now you have 6-on-6 and a 290-pound defensive tackle, 2 220-pound linebackers. You can run on that. So for just stat purposes, the Rams in week 14 against the Bills had 34 carries for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Bills running the ball out of 11 personnel. It's not like they were spectacular in terms of just like success rate or EPA. It wasn't the explosives, but it was the constant boom, boom, boom. We're just going to keep hitting you. Like, we're just going to keep hitting you with the jab. We're going to keep hitting you with 11 personnel.
And then the Bills, those overall numbers balance out, because in the second half, especially starting in the third quarter, the Bills, all right, cool, we're bringing a safety down. We're gapping out. We're using numbers. And then the Rams are like, okay, cool. Now we're just going to hit you with Puka Nacua on the outside in one-on-ones and chunk you to death in the pass game. And like that's what it creates. Yes. And it's such a vulnerability that I feel like offenses can push them in that direction and set themselves up. And that Rams game is such a good microcosm. You might look at the total numbers and be like, okay, it's not crazy, but with what it set up and what it led to, the Bills essentially were on the back foot that entire game, all because they kept getting displaced against the run.
And I hate saying like they use the run to set up the pass, because that kind of gets like skewed as like run the ball, never throw it. But the Rams intentionally came in wanting to run the ball out of 11 to force that safety down. And then we're like, okay, we got them now, because they're so worried about getting hit in the run game. I think the biggest lesson.
And then they're also giving the ball to Puka Nacua on like jet sweeps for touchdowns and stuff, because the Bills were like, oh, we got to get inside and stop duo. And they were like, psych, this isn't eye candy. We're giving the ball to Puka and it's wide open around the corner.
I think it was 3 consecutive plays where it was a Puka motion, where it was like a duo and split zone, or like it was a split zone, a screen to Puka, jet sweep. And I'm just like, oh, Sean McVay is like trying to torture this entire.
It's one of those like POV, you're a defense in hell. Like that's what it
was.
Oh
yeah, this is the sniper scope. He has got Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano in the sniper scope. But I think the biggest thing that you need to learn, that teams need to learn from the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, is that if you can stop the run using light boxes. You just need big dudes up front.
Or studs up front. You need Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Sweat and Brandon Graham and Milton Williams.
But even still, like, it doesn't have to be like you're spending all these first round picks on defensive linemen, because not every team has that luxury. You can go get a DJ Reader. You can go get a guy like oh my gosh, I think
I wanted DJ Jones.
Oh yes, nice. DJ Jones. I think the Bills actually signed Roy Lopez.
The Lions got him. I wanted Roy Lopez too. He was one of my top free agent additions. Like,
again, you need those guys. Every team needs a guy that's just there to clog gaps, to just hold space. Because especially with the way the Bills want to play football, want to win defensively, you got to keep bodies off of Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard. Not only because they're able to process and they're able to think quicker when they're not being hit all the time, but again, you're keeping a lot of hits off them so they don't get injured.
Yeah.
So I just really want the Bills to embrace the fact that they're not going to be able to live in nickel forever while only playing while not having a real nose tackle or a real one tech. It's what happened to the Niners last season. They figured out on the wrong side, you can't win in football having a fake nose tackle.
And what did the Niners do in the draft? Who did they get?
They went and drafted
first round Michael Williams, and then they get Alfred Collins.
Alfred Collins. They drafted CJ West on day 3. They were like, okay, you know what? We're done. We're done being told we can't stop the run. We're gonna go all out on it. It's that Ronnie Coleman line. Everybody wants to play the run in light boxes till somebody got to hit a heavy ass guard. Everybody want to be a bodybuilder. Nobody wants to go lift heavy ass weights. Everybody want to play the run in light boxes, do all this cool drawn up shit. You got to hit somebody in the face. You got to be able to hold up in the run game. So I'm really, really worried about that when it comes to the Bills, because like you said, it feels like they just kind of, we're just going to keep doing our thing harder. We're going to keep trying to create negatives, but also give up explosives. And I'm just like, I don't know if that works.
That's exactly it. And, out of light boxes last year, the Bills were higher is better. They were 14th in EPA per rush. They also gave up the 4th most runs of 10 or more yards with 43. And then they were also 8th in stuff rate at 14.9. And again, that's kind of just it. And I think they, with the addition of Ryan Nielsen and some of the players they added, I do think, like you said, and like I mentioned, they're just going to lean more into the penetration and the upfield piece. And it's like, and that havoc generation, they are playing for takeaways and for negative plays. They want tackles for loss. They want stuffs. They want to create havoc. They're trying to force that literally and figuratively. And they've made it clear that they're okay if that means they get pushed around a little bit, if they have to gap out, if they get gouged, like they're okay living in that way. And I guess it's somewhat sustainable when you look at the overall numbers, but it's really a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And again, if you can't, I kept making game script jokes all last year because I kept saying if the Bills offense doesn't force the opponent's offense to abandon the run and the game stays close, teams will be able to run on the Bills. And the Bills' only way to stop it is to gap out. And then if they have to gap out, you get what the Rams had. Now, Stafford is amazing. Kupp is sweet. Nakua is sweet. They've got some pieces on the line. Sean McVay is arguably the greatest offensive mind in football and legitimately one of the best all time. So I know they're dialed up to 100 and the sliders are pushed up in a lot of ways for them. But that game's a good example. Like you get put on the back. You can get put on your back foot relatively easily. And then you're chasing your tail. And it's nuts. The Bills have consistently over the last 5 years been really good at creating turnovers in a thing that should regress and shouldn't be sustainable. They find a way to continuously force turnovers, but that's a dangerous way to live. Being 31st in punts per drive, but first in takeaways per drive, and you're really relying on the takeaways. The Ravens game is a good example. They win that game. They don't force any punts. And all the stops came from takeaways. And it's like, okay, well, you can't rely on that, but they do rely on that. But it's hard to rely on that, but they find a way to do it. It's this weird, I would just it's similar to the Ravens. Don't be A+ and B-. I would I would sacrifice some of the havoc plays for just more sustainability. Force me some more punts. Don't force me some 3-and-outs. Don't allow teams to eat up 5 to 6 minutes, even if they don't score, because they're able to run the ball down your throat and push you around.
It feels like, in a way, the way that we talk about Josh Allen and the way that we talk about the Bills defense has flipped to a point where before it was the Bills are just going to be super efficient. They're not going to allow a lot of yards early. They're not going to allow a lot of points. And Josh Allen's going to do some crazy shit, but also it might work. And there's a 50-yard touchdown in there. Now the Bills offense has become this uber efficient machine, and the defense is now I will probably give up a 50-yard touchdown. We'll probably get an interception. It's like they're playing the chaos game. They are summoning Maharaga, which is just turnover or negative play. Yeah. That is their entire game plan. So I wish they would be a little bit more serious about defending the run, because that would unlock so much more possibilities for them defensively to make sure that they're not always reliant on those takeaways.
Yeah, and then again, talking about structurally, like we said, the second level, the size of those guys, it's just, you want Bernard to play free and shoot gaps. Same thing for Milano and same thing for Taryn, and not having that body, even in some rotational aspect, and really just leaning into that inside rush. I also think it goes a little hand in hand with the pass rush concerns that I have off the edge, because I think Bosa's their best chance to have a true edge one as a pass rusher, and he's a question mark. And then Greg Rousseau needs to take a jump. I think he's more of a Robin or maybe even a Nightwing than he is a Batman, and needs someone to be that Batman for him, though he's still on an upward trajectory and could be that guy. I just have questions on the defensive line, but especially that spine, the run defense piece. And then he had injuries. Why? I'm talking about the outside wide receiver piece, and even tying into your Kincaid point, which I thought was really good. I'll start with Kincaid point, kind of work my way backwards. I think he hit it, spot on. When they drafted Kincaid, the big thing I said was, and this isn't me just kind of pat myself on the back, the idea was man, they're going to go 12 personnel and dictate matchups to the defense. It's okay, cool. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, you need 2 tight ends that are both capable as pass catchers and as run blockers. And they don't have to be amazing. They both don't have to be George Kittle, who's amazing as a pass catcher and amazing as a run blocker. But you at least got to be Sam Laporta level as a blocker, or Trey McBride, or even Brock Bowers. And Kincaid is not fair, who's also better than Kincaid. And Kincaid is a willing blocker, but he's a fluid athlete. He's wiry, but his frame and his build doesn't lend itself for him to kind of people move. And then his technique isn't always on point. And so he can block nickels and he can block corners, but you'll see him struggle against, bigger body DBs, whether it's a big nickel or a safety. And then linebackers, it's not happening. He's not washing down an edge. Like, he'll bang a little bit and he will try, but you're just not seeing that. And so, like you said, you've got this piece who should be a matchup nightmare for defenses and should be a dictation piece for an offense against the defense. But he's essentially just a big body wide receiver at this point. And you can't line him up in line. So at best, he's going to be that guy who's hipped off the tight end, more of the move or more of the F type of guy or the adjuster. That changes how you can use him, where you can use him. My hope for him this year, and this is I feel like it's such an unfair thing. Like, I want them to go, give me 2 tight ends with Knox and Hawes. I also want jumbo at the same time with Alec Anderson on the field. So give me 6 offensive linemen and then give me 3 tight ends on the field. But it's Knox and Hawes that are attached or around the formation or line of scrimmage. And then it's Dalton Kincaid split out wide as a quasi-X. Like, give me more quasi-X Dalton Kincaid, because I don't think corners have the size, even though they have the athleticism to bang with him. And if you pick someone with the size, they're probably not going to have the athleticism. But that's where he needs to live, like more outside. If you bring him close to the formation, you can run the ball still. He's not necessarily a deficiency or a vulnerability, but he's not adequate yet as a blocker. That limits his usage. And then you tie that in with losing Mac Hollins, who was such an important piece of their run game last year, especially when they would go out of 11 or anything with wide receivers, because he was almost like a tight end wide receiver hybrid and could block a variety of guys and insert against a variety of guys, was great on duo, could function a variety of ways. My first question is, who fills that role from a receiver standpoint? Is it Keon Coleman? You're probably hoping it is. Is it Kincaid? I would probably lean Coleman than Kincaid as a blocker, which is crazy to say. What does Palmer function like as a blocker? Shakir showed pluses as a blocker last year, but you don't want him living in that type of Mac Hollins role, even if it means you keep him on the field. So who fills that? And then, to your other point, like, who consistently wins on the outside? Like, I think their best hope for it is Palmer, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, between the release package, his stem deception, and his ability to win underneath and in the intermediate, I think he's their best chance of being a consistent one-on-one winner on the outside. He's not a burner. He doesn't stretch the field. He can get vertical because of his stem deception and his work, but it's hard for me to see Keon Coleman making that jump in year 2 where he's all of a sudden got clean feet, better stem work, mastered some of the route tree, and is understanding pacing and gear changes and body movement. But that's a question, because if they don't have somebody that can win on the outside and or vertical, teams are going to do what the Ravens and Texans did to them in their back-to-back losses earlier in the year, which is say, you know what? We don't think you have somebody on the outside that can beat us, so we're just going to load the box, play a bunch of single high, and play a bunch of man, because if the ball's in the middle of the field, we don't think you can beat us outside and vertical. And we know you're capped itself, so we're just going to load everything in here and try and stymie the run because we don't think you have somebody to win on the outside. And then that's even worse if a team has good corners or athletic corners, because then it makes it even harder. I think that's a very fair question. The only thing that makes me feel better is their offensive line is good, their run game is good, their formational usage is good. All of it between the players, Joe Brady, and offensive line coach Aaron Cromer, they work very well together. So I think it'll take a lot to stop the run game, which makes me less concerned about the receivers. Like, if this was 2021 and the Bills were going to come out and throw it 40 times a game, we got a problem because they're not built for that. But I think the run game helps mitigate it. But I do think it's a concern, like, because Shakir, we know where he operates, and it's not that true X. It's not outside. It's not in those one-on-ones. And his role is awesome, and it's valuable, and he's awesome, and he's valuable. But who presents you that one-on-one capability, that outside capability, that mismatch creator there, or that guy that can get you a bucket? If teams decide to go single high to stop the run, who's that guy who can be like, you know what? I'm one-on-one. Yo, give me the ball. I got this guy. I'm going to sell up field and put my foot in the ground. And I'm going to be open on a 6-yard hitch. Give me the ball. Or you know what? This guy can't stay with me. I'm going to beat him vertical. I think the best hope, I think, is Palmer. Is it Elijah Moore? Like and the fact that we're asking that is fun, but also scary.
Yeah, and I think when I brought up do you have someone on the outside, another question that I have was that outside is so important because everybody on the roster right now outside of Keon Coleman is you kind of operate in all the same areas. Khalil Shakir was 13th in routes run over the middle of the field. That is where he lives. He lives in the screen game, yards after the catch, and in the middle of the field.
And his average depth of target was like an inch past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he's not doing like downfield stuff. Curtis Samuel is not a downfield receiver. Yeah. Dalton Kincaid, the entire reason for having Dalton Kincaid is so you can isolate matchups in the middle of the field. And then you just, like we talked about earlier, you're creating an offense full of DeMar DeRozans where everybody lives in the middle of the field. And you're making the game easier for the defense. Oh, they don't have anyone on the outside. We're just gonna play single high, flood everybody, flood the middle of the field with defenders, force them to throw it outside. The reason you weren't able to force them to throw it outside last year was because Mac Hollins was really good in contested catch situations because you didn't want to leave corners one-on-one with Amari Cooper. Can Keon Coleman do that? Can Josh Palmer become that outside guy? I think just having that threat, it doesn't have to be Keon Coleman doesn't have to turn into Julio Jones this season. But if you can just be better in the contested situations.
Like you said, the threat has to be there. The defense has to be like, can we play one-on-one with that guy? You just need them to think that. Like, that's all you need.
That's the entire reason behind that chess match. You want them to think, I don't know if we can leave our corners one-on-one with Keon Coleman because he's going to win in that contested catch situation. I don't know if we can leave our corners one-on-one with Josh Palmer because he will win in those contested situations. You just need somebody on the outside who can you have a threat on the outside. That'll open up a lot of things for the Bills. And I think that's what they were trying to do with Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper just didn't have it at that age. I don't know if Elijah Moore is going to do that because Elijah Moore is like 5'10". Like, I don't know if Elijah Moore is going to be.
Yeah, he's more like, hey, let's put him in a trips bunch and put him in motion and use him to get him free.
We have to get him a free release. We got to design that for him. But the issue there is you got to do that for Khalil Shakir. You got to do that for Curtis Samuel. You got to do that for Dalton Kincaid. You see how you have all these players you have to design routes for and design free releases for in the middle of the field, and nobody who is on the outside who can be a reliable threat. It's really hard to win that way. And I think Kansas City had to learn that the hard way. When you don't have a reliable threat on the outside, it's tough to win games. So I think they have enough to overcome it, especially with Josh Allen being Josh Allen and the run game being uber successful. But I just wonder when we get down into when we're talking about, we're not just for the Bills, we're not just talking about like winning the division at this. We're talking about like winning the Super Bowl. Do they have a guy when you're playing teams like the Ravens, you're playing teams like the Chiefs, you're playing teams like the Eagles? Do you have a guy on the outside who you trust in those contested situations against those guys? Do you have a guy that you think can win against the Ravens corners? Do you have a guy that you think can win against Philadelphia's corners? Because if not, the Eagles are just going to do what they did to the Chiefs, just play cover one the entire game and force you to throw it outside.
Put you in help. And then you couple that with a minor thing for Josh Allen that I think he needs improvement on. His deep ball has suffered the past couple of years. And some of that is the receivers. Some of that is him. But if you focus just on 2024, so Josh Allen on deep throws of 20 or more air yards out of 35 qualifying QBs, regular season only, he was second in attempts with 66. He was 21st in EPA per dropback, 16th in total EPA, 23rd in completion rate over expected at negative 1.4%, and he was 29th in QB rating at 69.6. If I'm an opposing defense, and again, the run game is still good, They could suck teams in with play action. They need to use more play action last year. I know we're talking about an offense with the MVP QB that was tremendous in EPA per play and success rate and all these things, but I'm still maintaining that the Bills being 27th in play action rate last year at 18% with how good their run game is, that's criminal and inexcusable. And especially with some of the struggles of the passing game, you can alleviate so much of that. Let's just go a little more play action and hit some stuff in the intermediate. We don't have to push it too deep. Hit it in the intermediate. Let's create some easy buttons with play action. But I think Allen struggles deep. The lack of, or some questions at the outside receiver spot, I think it could potentially get scary. I think the receiving room is good enough to get it done. I think Palmer, for me, it's Palmer over Coleman to be that guy. I really want Coleman to make the jump. But I'm very much a known quantity type of guy. Give me the highest floor possible. And that's Palmer over Coleman for me right now. But yeah, it can get a little scary if teams decide, you know what? We got two good corners on the outside. We're just going to play cover one, or we're going to play single high. We're going to load the box. Even if we play cover three, you're still essentially kind of on the island out there. We can trust. We're the Texans. We can trust Stingley and Lassiter to play one-on-one. Oh, we're the Ravens. We can trust Wiggins and Jair on the outside. Or you know what? Maybe we play bigger this game. We put Marlon Humphrey on the outside, and it's Humphrey and Jair, or Humphrey and Wiggins, and we can kind of go toe-to-toe that way. Same thing with the Chiefs. We'll play McDuffie in a variety of ways. It can get a little scary, but
you brought up the point with, real quick. You brought the point with Josh Allen's deep ball accuracy. And again, I just think about the story they wrote last year with the Bills' Chiefsification of the offense. It's all starting to.
I know, dude. It's following in like lockstep. The only thing they're not doing is going to the Super Bowl every year. It's like the same process. They're just following in their footsteps, but not doing the biggest thing of getting to the Super Bowl.
We're getting there with Boruto. We're getting there, but we're still trying there. We're still trying.
Dude, yeah, that was really, that's such a good way to put it. Yeah, well done. Yeah, it's another frustrating aspect for this offense. And then the injuries piece, like you mentioned too. Yeah, the past couple of years, man, come playoff time, it's not just like injuries popping up. It's like the biggest guys getting injured. 2 years ago, they lose to the Chiefs at home, but they put up an admirable performance defensively, considering they had AJ Klein starting at linebacker, who was about to go on a cruise with his family like 2 or 3 weeks before, like literally is packing for a vacation. And Sean McDermott's like, yo, we need you to come and play and start. And he does. No Benford in that game. No Terrell Bernard in that game. Rasul Douglas is playing banged up in that game. Everybody and their mother was like hurt in that game against the Chiefs 2 years ago. And then this year, Benford gets knocked out on the first series or the second series. Milano's working his way back from injury. Like, it just seems like they pick up these knocks at the worst time. And you know what? Their defense has performed admirably in the regular season and in the playoffs. I think the Bills do a good job of kind of getting those depth guys up to snuff. But for a defense that, I did an episode last week on the defensive pillars for the Bills defense going into this year, and who like kind of the pillars were for this defense. But you can make the case that like a lot of the pillars of the defense aren't necessarily like great players at those positions, or at best, they do have question marks around them in terms of their consistency or their effectiveness or where they rank amongst their peers. And so I do think there's something to be said to your point of, they don't really have a lot of margin for error with the injuries. They've gotten their backups to play at a high floor level, but the starters matter a lot for the ceiling, especially at the second level. Like you mentioned, like Dorian Williams played admirably last year. There's a big difference between like what Terrell Bernard brings and what Matt Milano brings versus what Dorian Williams brings. Again, if Milano is healthy, but he showed flashes last year, and that's also an interesting piece too, right? If like Milano's healthy and Bernard is healthy, there's a chance you could have one of the better linebacker duos in football. And if Taron Johnson stays healthy, you have one of the better second levels in all of football. But if you got climbing guards getting to them every other play and punching them in the face on duo because you can't stop anything up front, that can be a bit of an issue. And then if Max Harrison goes down, are you starting Trey White at corner? Are you starting Dane Jackson? If Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop goes down, assuming they win the job, are you starting DeMar Hamlin? Are you starting Derek Forrest? I already have questions at the top of the safety group, let alone start to bring in the rotating guys. Or even worse, Benford is so good in coverage and as a run player in terms of fit and tackling and support. What happens if Benford goes down again? Like, Benford matters a lot. And then Or, you know what? God forbid, too. What happens if Greg Rousseau gets hurt? Like, you're one anchor at edge and one of the better run defenders. For as much as they have struggles stopping the run out of light boxes, if they didn't have Greg Rousseau, oh my God. Like, it would be so much worse. He's such a force multiplier against the run and is still good enough as an edge too, as a pass rusher. Yeah, it can be. And again, you could say this for a lot of teams, but I think especially on that defensive side of the ball, they are several injuries from being like, oh, uh-oh. And then now all of a sudden, all of your issues are amplified further. And I think it's a good point because we've seen the past couple of years for a team that's largely healthy, they get hurt going into the playoff run, and all of those issues in a matchup-driven league, in matchup games in the playoffs, get amplified because your top dudes and your pillars and your most important guys who aren't replaceable have to be replaced.
Yeah, and it sucks so much for the Bills because unlike baseball, unlike basketball, this isn't a 7-game series. This isn't you can't go back out there and play again and with hopes that Matt Milano is going to be healthy for game 2. In the playoffs, it's a 1-game sample size. And I think, especially for the Bills defense, that is where I really have most of the questions about their health, because if this was just a one-time injury, I wouldn't bring it up. It would be like everybody gets injured in the NFL. Yeah. But because this happens to the Bills every year, Taron Johnson's always missing time. Matt Milano always missing time. Terrell Bernard missing time a lot. And then, like you said, the safety room. While I think Cole Bishop can be very good in this defense, he's coming off an injury and was not very good last season.
And he needs a lot of time on task. Like, even if it's even for him, it's not even like an injury sucks for 2025 because, you know, who's the backup? And that also significantly stunts what he could be in year 3. Like, he missed a lot of time last year, and he needed that time to be good for this year.
So then you're relying on DeMar Hamlin again, and you find yourself back in the same position as you were last year with just the team speed at the safety spot not being up to snuff. Mm-hmm. So for this Bills team specifically that relies so much on their second level and their safeties being absolutely insane against the run, sacrificing their bodies, how sustainable is that when you get to playoff time? And I think it goes back to how you play your defense. If you had a bigger run-stopping nose that was able to take a few hits off of that second level, maybe we wouldn't be having this question. But you don't. And Matt Milano always is out, always is missing time. You can't have that at this point when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. Like, Matt Milano is fantastic. He brings the highest ceiling outside of Bernard of any player. He's got to stay healthy. And that's the biggest question for the Bills defense outside of stopping the run.
Yeah, I think it's very fair. And it's so funny how even in like the injury conversation like that we're having, it comes back to like stopping the run and like having to fit, like asking your safeties to fit the run from these 2 high coverage structures that they want to do and the pre to post snap picture and just this domino effect. It also excites me because like we're back to the meta of football that I like, which is like, what was the joke that you said at one time? Like, oh, like my pronouns are gap and are power and counter. Like, I just love that we're getting back to like the run game matters again and pushing people around matters. And we're adding gaps and removing gaps. And the run game is very much back in vogue. And it's just interesting that, especially too, when you juxtapose it with what the Bills offense is, right? Several years ago, the Bills were spread them out, chuck it 40 times a game. Josh Allen's going to pass for 5,000 yards. That's what we're doing. And then they moved to, you know what? The Chiefsification. We're going to go with heavier personnel. We're going to go condensed, and we're going to run the football. It's so funny seeing the offense move with the evolution and the time is a flat circle piece of football, but the defense isn't. It's so interesting, and especially when the defense was ahead initially, right? Like, they had Taron Johnson and they had Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. So they could play all these coverages, defend the pass and the run because they had a nickel who could mash against receivers as blockers, but also cover. And then they had safeties that kind of, you know, blurred the lines between free and strong safety. And now they're in a spot where like the safeties are questionable. And it's questionable if they can stop the run. Like they're not it feels like they're not in the forefront of this movement. They're on the back foot and chasing their tail a little bit, which is annoying in and of itself, but even more so considering on the other side of the ball, they're falling in line and at the forefront of like what better offense is doing, like the Lions and the Rams and the Ravens and the Chiefs when they're going. Go condensed, heavier personnel, use formation and alignment and personnel groupings to dictate matchups and take advantage, bring back the run game, move people. And then on defense, it's like, no, we don't have to worry about that. It's like, yes, you do. Like you need to be able to defend your own offense because your offense is where the game is going, but you haven't built that. But I understand it because it kind of balances out and kind of works, but it also kind of doesn't. And that pisses me off a lot. Man.
It's tough, especially when you put it the way you did with the Bills offense willingly changing the way they play and undergoing a facelift in what felt like 2.5 years, maybe. But the defense is still like, we're going to keep doing this. Yep. We're going to keep banging our head against this wall personnel wise. I think schematically, they're fine schematically. Yeah. It's just, they don't have the bodies to do what they want to do up front. Like it's tough to stop the run when you're asking 290-pound Ed Oliver to hold a gap. That's not what he's built to do. Yeah. And so you're asking Daquan Jones to do that. You're asking Deion Walker to do that. TJ Sanders isn't going to do that. You're hoping Dwayne Carter does that. Even Dwayne Carter coming out of Duke was more of a gap shooter.
We talked to Dwayne Carter too, and they had him playing at like 310 plus pounds, which he didn't really play at a lot. And you saw him, he looked out of place because he's not a one tech. And they had him add this weight to be able to play 1 and 3. And instead, you just got him caught in the middle, not really being an effective 3 and not being an effective 1. And then similarly with Sanders, reports are like he wants to play or they want him to play around 310. How much does that? His whole game is penetration and juice. So how much does that matter versus when he's playing at 290 or 295 or 300? Like 10 pounds is a big difference. And even that, like, okay, their game is based on penetration and shooting. Then why are you having them like ads? It just feels weird. The archetypes they go for, the changes they're trying to get them to make, not deviating, but also trying to deviate. It's like they're caught in the middle in no man's land, but they're also doing it to themselves and also at opposite ends of the spectrum. It's weird. And then on top of it all, they continue to find a way to force fumbles and get interceptions and bail themselves out or create tackles for loss and stuffs. It's so weird. And let's, and and we streamlined it. We're still at an hour and 42. I should have known better. I don't even know why I tried. Because I can't imagine if I actually went with a full list myself, we'd be here for 3 hours. We wouldn't be off the first segment.
We'll break it up into parts.
That's fair. That is fair. We'll pivot here unless anything else on things that could hold the Bills back. Anything else you want to get on the holster?
I think you hit it on the head.
Okay, so now we bring this to the third segment. the one that you got to take that step back. The question can be, so it could be a simple yes or no. It could be as brief or as detailed of an answer as you want it to be. Do the Buffalo Bills finally get over the hump in the AFC in 2025? JP, the floor is yours. What do you got?
Oh, man.
I know.
As much as I want to say yes, I'm still terrified of picking anybody but the Chiefs. Like it's
right there with you, man. I get
it. Again, like we talked about earlier in the show, it's just like every time you feel like you want to pick against Kansas City, they completely morph the way they play. They have the highest scoring offense in the NFL. The defense resurges, and they're back winning a Super Bowl again. It's tough to beat them, especially if they're going to keep getting home field advantage. And they've even proven that they don't need home field advantage to go win a Super Bowl. They can go to Baltimore and win in Baltimore. They've proven they can go into Buffalo and beat Buffalo. It's really hard to pick against the Chiefs, even though I had them third in the power rankings in the NFC, because you have the 4 greatest trump cards in the sport. You have Mahomes and Reed, Chris Jones and Spags. And until somebody in the AFC goes and beats them
Yep.
in the playoffs, it's just tough to choose against anybody else.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately in a similar boat. I feel like the Bills, we've talked about this. My favorite Dragon Ball character is Vegeta. And until I see Vegeta be the guy to be like the winner of any saga, I'm just not committing to it. The Chiefs are Goku, and I just feel at the end of the day, like there was that, slight glimmer where, Gohan beats Cell, but he's Goku's son, so it still kind of counts. Like until I see a main saga where it's not Goku, I'm just always going to assume, no, Goku will find a way. Like it's going to end up even in the Cell saga, Goku's dead, but he's finding a way to still help Gohan. Like it's just until they show me that it's not Goku, until the Chiefs are dethroned officially, it's so hard for me. And even Richie, thank you very much for your second super chat. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. And thank you for being here in general too. Richie says the Chiefs got embarrassed in all caps in the Super Bowl. He says, I'm not worried this year. And I get that notion. I understand, like, man, did the Eagles provide a blueprint, which I think a lot of their blueprint is just having a ton of horses up front, which is hard to replicate, and some horses on the back end, but that's a conversation for another time. But you see the Chiefs get worked, and you see that Joe Tooney is gone, and Justin Reed is gone, and Travis Kelce looked slow, and Mahomes is maybe showing some cracks in the armor a little bit, and they have questions at the tackle spot on offense. And I understand this notion completely that, you know what, they're more vulnerable than ever. This is the year. I could even see Bills fans being like, I'm not worried about the Chiefs. I'm worried about Baltimore, or something like that. But I can't get past. I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC and arguably the best team in football. I think the Bills can beat anybody in the NFL on any given Sunday or Monday or Saturday or Thursday. Just throwing that out there to cover all bases. But I can't get past the notion that the Chiefs are going to come out of the AFC because they do it like every friggin' year. And it's been that way for like 7 years or roughly whatever it's been until somebody does it. And it'll be somebody fluky this year. Like you said, it'll be like the Raiders knock them out in the wild card. Somebody like some stupid team will be the one to dethrone the Chiefs. And it'll be like, oh, really? After all this time? But yeah, until somebody does it, man, I can't get past like thinking that it's going to be Kansas City at the end of the day coming out of the AFC. I don't want it to be, but to be the man, you got to beat the man, and nobody's beating them. Like nobody's taken that crown. Nobody's kicked them off the throne. Even when they look their most vulnerable, like you said, they just put together some kind of masterclass or just enough to get it done. And it's so hard.
And the Dragon Ball Z comparison is perfect because even when Vegeta gets a new form, Ultra Ego in the manga, oh yeah, it's amazing, incredible, super powerful. Oh, Goku went beyond Ultra Instinct.
Oh yeah, Vegeta did this new thing. Oh, and then Goku practices for 2 minutes, and yeah, he went way beyond anyone's ever seen. I hate Goku so much.
You're so close. You're right there, and it's just tough to pick anybody else. And this isn't saying like anybody else outside of the Chiefs are not going to make a Super Bowl ever. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bills or Ravens made a Super Bowl. Just right now, you still have to go and beat them in Kansas City. I don't know. The Bills can win the Super Bowl this year. You just got to go do it. I think that's the biggest thing for the Bills right now. It is we can see that on paper they're probably a better team than the Chiefs. We can see that in the regular season they have beaten the Chiefs multiple times. You just got to go do it.
And even when they lose to them in the playoffs, it's small. It's these small margins for error that do them in. Like you lose by 3 points. You lose on the last possession, whether you have the ball or they have the ball. You're right there. You're not the Bills. Same thing for the Ravens too. You're not outclassed by Kansas City for as great as Spags has been and is. And same thing for Andy Reid and Chris Jones and Mahomes. You're right there. Like you have more than a puncher's chance to beat them. They just nobody has. And it's like, that's just what makes it all the more. It's not like, oh, well, they're a complete tier above. You got no hope. You never had. No, like you're right there. I'm so mad all over again. Thinking of it. Yeah, it's I can't answer this question because I'm far too superstitious. I don't make game predictions.
Yeah.
I don't make season predictions. I am beyond superstitious. I'm super superstitious. But man, we got to stop. Richie, again, thank you so much for being here and for the super chat. This is awesome, Richie. And Richie says, I haven't read this comment yet, and so I'm reading it now. Richie says, do we forget that their 15-2 record was fraudulent? Their defense got them that far, let's be honest. The new narrative will be Buffalo versus Baltimore. You heard it here first. The Broncos are winning that division. Stay tuned. But so here's the thing, right? With the Chiefs and their like record being fraudulent, I understand that, but also like they put themselves in for as much as they have like fluky wins or it's fraudulent, they still put themselves in the position to win those kind of games. And JP, you said it earlier, like that's how they win. They're comfortable being like, we're up by 3 with 2 minutes to go and the other team has the ball. We'll figure something out. We're down by 6 and we have the ball. Oh, okay, cool. We'll go down, score a touchdown, and we'll win by 1. The cards just fall in their favor. Now, do the refs help out sometimes like they did against the Bengals last year? Sure. Absolutely. But they put themselves in position to win more often than not. And I feel like we've been making this fraudulent comment about the Chiefs, and I do think there's some merit to it, but I feel like it's been made for the past like 3-4 years. And if you continue to make that, like it's at some point, it's not fraudulent. Like that's just how they win and they keep winning that way. Like it's just tough.
We can say it's fraudulent, and then they get to the playoffs and post like 3 of their 4 highest success rate in EPA games of the year.
They turn it on
in the playoffs. Like we can say that their record in 15-2 was fraudulent. That doesn't matter with the Chiefs. They could be 10-7 and get to the playoffs as a wild card. You still have to go beat them.
Yes,
you still have to go and do it. And the problem is the defense getting them far. Good. That's what a good team does. That's what a good team does. Great teams find ways to win. And the Chiefs are a great team because they can win in those margins. They have maximized where everybody else hasn't gone yet, which is it doesn't matter what's going to happen between the first and third quarter. We have the 4 biggest big game trump cards in the sport. So again, with the Bills, we can say all these nice, glowing things about Buffalo. We say the nice, glowing things about the Ravens. You have to go do it. You have to go do it this year. This is not a like, oh, we'll get them next year. I mean, you still can, but like, this is it. This is the year.
Yeah.
If you're going to try and get them, you got to go get them this year.
Yeah. Fair comment here in the comments from Saturday Cupcake saying, why do you keep saying nobody has when the Bengals have done so? Yes, technically you're right, but also, yes, that one time out of all these years that somebody beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, yes, the Bengals did do that. You can't take that away from them. But that's one time out of how many years? So I get that nobody isn't factually accurate, but on the whole, the Chiefs have been the final boss of the AFC, unfortunately. And
even the Bengals haven't gotten back because they lost to the Chiefs the year after that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even when you get them once, you got to keep doing it. And until somebody consistently does it in the playoffs, I don't know. Like I'm still going to choose Kansas City. And even that Bengals team that beat them, this Chiefs team is a completely different team.
Yeah, it's a completely different piece. So is that Bengals team now. Like things
just
have to
completely different. So
just have to click.
It's just you got to go do it now. We can say the nice stuff. It's eventually the luck's gonna run out, but
I know
sometimes like
it just doesn't. And Richie, again, thank you so much for the super chats. I really appreciate the hell out of you. But Richie says you said it perfectly, Ant. And then this comment, this is what gets me. Richie says it's a law of averages / luck, and that stuff will run out at some point. Yes, calls by the refs, maybe even, but pay attention. The Chiefs get them always at critical times. I do, think there's some merit to that, and that's fair. I'm a big believer in like the law of averages, regression to the mean, both positively and negatively. I've been saying this for the last like 7 years, and so that's what I'm saying. Like Andrew says, like, how can you continue to call it luck when it happens every time? That's the kind of point that I'm at. Like, I feel like the law of averages don't apply here anymore, and I keep waiting. Similarly, on the other side of it, in a positive way, I mentioned it for the Bills earlier, the law of averages, their turnover ability on defense should stop at some point. Every year I keep saying like, well, the turnovers aren't going to be able to be sustained this year. So what are they going to do defensively? And it's like, nope, they're still going to be like top 3 or top 5 in takeaways. That shouldn't be sustainable. That should be subject to the law of averages, but it hasn't been. And that just applies to the Chiefs on a grander scale with their offense and their defense. And that's why I think like, I'm always a big believer of that, the proverbial better lucky than good. And yeah, it's like a baseball team that just keeps hitting bloopers. And it's like, well, they're not going to keep hitting bloopers, but they just keep hitting bloopers. They keep not making solid contact, and the ball keeps falling where none of the infielders or outfielders are. And that's what the Chiefs have been doing for years, to the point now where it makes me think it's not luck. It's who they are. Like JP, like you said, it's there, and they put themselves in those positions. It's somewhat by design. Yes, they have benefited significantly from several calls throughout the years, especially in big moments. But I think there's something to be said for the Chiefs creating those scenarios and being able to win out of them. And that is by design. And I think it comes back to that coaching staff and their big players, the big four. Oh, man, I hate the Chiefs.
I mean, if we just want to take the AFC Championship game last year, for example, like there were questionable calls in there, yes.
Josh Allen got the first down on that sneak. Like, I know but also you couldn't see the ball. So I understand the ref saying it, but also look where his body is and where the ball, like we think the ball was, but also
Patrick Mahomes had a 0.52 EPA per play.
Yeah.
That is insane. The Chiefs had a 68% success rate as a passing team in that game. Like, we could say, like, yeah, there was some luck. There was some, Josh Allen got that first down. At the end of the day, like, that's tough. Like, again, you just have to go do it. Like, you can keep saying, like, oh, you're going to get lucky calls. You're going to get this, that, and the other. At some point, it's just got to happen. If it happens this year, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, with the AFC, I'm not picking anybody outside the Chiefs until like somebody does it to them again.
Yeah. I need to see it happen with regularity. That was a bit of a loaded question, but I think we answered it well. Shout out to Richie for all the super chats and kind of massaging us into this direction. JP, I said it to you in the DM, and when I probably jinxed it then, and then I probably jinxed it earlier in the setup and telling people how this was going to go. We ended up essentially going 2 hours. And then we were chatting offline too much, and we started about 10 minutes late. So not only are we past 11 o'clock, we're running up on 2 hours. So one, I apologize for not being a man of my word, and I apologize for lying and keeping you longer than I initially thought. But also, I think you also kind of expected it to some degree, and I appreciate you for that. This was awesome. Appreciate the hell out of you. I'm sure everybody and their mother knows who you are at this point, but in case they don't, the floor is yours. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, where they can find your work, socials, articles, anything and everything. You're awesome and you do great work. The floor is yours. Plug away.
Well, first of all, thank you for the platform, the opportunity to talk. I mean, I love going 2 hours talking ball. Like, that's truly, like I told you off the stream. If I love talking about football, writing is cool. This is what I love to do. This is the type of stuff that I want to do. And you are one of the best, most gracious hosts I've been on with, and also extremely knowledgeable about the game. So it's always cool just talking with you. But in terms of where people can find me, you can find me at SB Nation. I am a football writer, which means wherever's football being played, I'm probably going to be there talking about it. You can follow me on Twitter at Acosta32_JP. On Blue Sky, you can find me. I think it's Acosta32JP, no underscore. And like I said, I write at SB Nation. We're ramping up some NFL preview stuff. I have one breakout player for every team. I will give you a hint for the Bills one. It's on defense. And I think it's on defense. And then I'm doing a lot more work on the 2026 NFL draft, ramping up some more prospects there before the season starts to get a good knowledge base. So just follow me, see what I'm doing, and see where I'm going.
I said it in the intro. I say it throughout the episode. And again, you folks know because I've had JP on so much at this point. A tremendous football mind. Understands the X's and understands is that's not proper grammar at all. Understands the X's and O's, scheme, structure, individual player evaluation, player responsibilities, what good looks like on assignments, and just somebody who, also has a good, I think, head and shoulders when it comes to, social media presence and how he engages. Like, he's just a tremendous follow on social, a great read when it comes to a lot of football stuff, like just things you're seeing high level, but also things that are going under the radar, scheme, structure, putting stuff together. I referenced your, I did to kind of put this all in perspective too as well. I did a full episode on why after the regular season ended, going into the playoffs, on why the Bills should use more pistol. And I was doing different stuff on pistol. And lo and behold, early in the 2024 season, you did a phenomenal article on, the pistol and it being in vogue and why teams should go to it. So just again, to give folks an example of, where JP's mind is at. He's a tremendous read, a tremendous follow. Give him your attention, give him some love and all that stuff. Enjoy what's left of your Tuesday night. I appreciate the hell out of you. I will DM you after this to sing your praises some more and thank you even further than I already have. But as always, I appreciate the hell out of you. This was awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll see you when I see you.
Of course. See you
later. Tremendous guest, Mr. J.P. Acosta, who I kept much longer than I should have, but, kind of par for the course of this. But I want to grab this other super chat. Richie, I appreciate the hell out of you, man. You're dropping tons of super chats tonight. Thank you so much. Richie says, Bills, Eagles, or Bills, Rams for Super Bowl 60. I'm far too superstitious to comment on that, but I'm not even going to say anything. I'm not even going to make a facial thing. I like that. But I shouldn't have said anything. I'm so stupid. K. Mori, thank you very much for saying quality 2 hours as usual. I appreciate it. I really didn't plan to go this long. I thought it would be more streamlined, but I knew when he jumped in offline at like 5 or 6 minutes before, and we started talking about football and a bunch of different stuff, and then that caused the stream to start late. And once that happened, I was like, once we actually get talking about ball, it's going to go longer. So I appreciate you saying that, K. Mori. I'm glad you enjoyed the quality 2 hours. For those of you who stayed, I like this from Connor saying Bills, Buccaneers. I really like the Buccaneers. I've watched so much Bucs tape. And I know Liam Cohen, their offensive coordinator from last year, is now in Jacksonville. But, man, even with Wirfs being injured, their O-line, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Baker, man, they Mike Evans. We'll see how healthy Godwin is. But I like McMillan, Cade Otton. Some fun pieces on defense. They got one of my favorite dudes in the draft this past year. So there's Levante David still kicking around and wrecking shop. Antoine Winfield is sweet. I appreciate the kind words from everybody in the chat. I really didn't plan for this episode to go long, but I guess we're starting to ramp up for training camp and the regular season. So I guess it makes sense that we're starting to get some regular season form in with this stuff. I appreciate you folks. Everybody who joined live and who stayed throughout the entirety of this episode, thank you so much. Also want to give a major thank you to the sponsor of the show, who I brought up in the beginning of this episode, One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni. If you get different toppings, they'll chop it up and sprinkle it evenly across the pie. They have a pizza that is named after the brand. It is called the Cover One Allen Goat. Goat in reference to Josh Allen, but also it's got goat cheese on it and different. I don't even want to spoil the ingredients. It's phenomenal. The online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Yeah, that pizza is the Cover One Allen Goat, but regardless of whatever pizza or pie you get, they're phenomenal. They also do a breakfast pie. They also have a catering division called Elevated Catering of Buffalo. Their food is phenomenal. I've had them cater multiple events throughout the past couple of years since they brought it out. Just really great food. They're really good people making really good food. They do a lot for the community, different initiatives and drives with Roswell, Toys for Tots, the Alzheimer's Foundation, the SPCA. They do a lot of good for the city and the community at large, and also provide tremendous food, which is also doing some good for the community and at large in the city of Buffalo as well. So get yourself some One Pie Pizza. I love their partnership. They're awesome in every way, shape, and form. Again, online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Same for the catering division, Elevated Catering of Buffalo. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks, because we're going to start to wind down. I see that comment from you, Claude, and I appreciate it. Like I always say, I feel weird pulling up positive things about myself, especially once I'm by myself on the show, because it just feels weird to be like, oh, let me pull up this comment and pat myself on the back. But I see all the kind words from everybody as we're winding down here. And as always, they mean a lot, and I significantly appreciate them more than you know. So thank you for that, Claude, and to everybody in the chat saying kind words. Major thank you to Richie for your 1, 2, 3, for 5 super chats in this episode. I appreciate the hell out of you for that. Thank you so much, Richie. And again, thank you to everybody who rode with me and JP live in this episode, over 2 hours on a random July Tuesday night leading into training camp. I appreciate you folks for tuning in and staying with us for the majority of this episode or the whole episode. If you're not watching live and you're watching later or listening later, that's cool too. Thank you very much for your post-live view, listen, download, whatever have you. I greatly appreciate it. If you're here on YouTube, please drop a like on YouTube on this stream. Likes are the lifeblood of these videos, whether you're watching live now or watching post live later. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel and check out the slew of content we have across multiple shows here on the channel. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. If you enjoyed this show, or me, or this channel, or this brand, tell your family, friends, and loved ones about it. If you hate me or hate this show, tell your enemies and try and make them watch it and ruin their day by watching something that you think is terrible. Next week, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, will be the next episode of Disguise Coverage. I will be joined by Joe Marino for a special training camp, detailed preview edition of who and what to watch for and why. Very excited to have Joe back on the show and being able to speak to him again after I was on Lockdown Bills with him about a couple weeks ago. So that's what's coming down the pike for next week's episode. Also have a very awesome and big time guest, No Jinx, coming onto the show the week before the regular season. So that'll be super fun. And yeah, I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Eric and I will be dropping a film room episode tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I will see you when I see you. Godspeed. I think I said on my event. Did I just say? I'm bugging out. Yeah. Godspeed. I will see you when I see you. And as always, go Bills.